Hello, everybody. It's my privilege to introduce to you, all the way from the south side of Chicago, the man, the myth, the legend, my Theo, your brother, the South Side Unicorn.
And what they're proposing, Romney wants to he said in the first 100 days, he's going to let the big banks once again write their own rules. Unchain Wall Street. They're going to put you all back in chains.
Hey, it's your boy Ken White, host of the Southside Unicorn Show. I want to put out a prayer to North Carolina. I want to put out a prayer to California and everywhere else around the world where people are distressed by whatever forces are in play. Some would say that now is not the time to have any opinions about what's happening in California, and I would beg to the contrary. It would be one thing if this was something new. It'd be another thing if we didn't expect this, but we expected this. We've dealt with it before. We even have the benefit of President Donald J. Trump in 2019 schooling and chiding this petulant child known as Governor Gavin Newsom. And he told him, make sure you have enough water. Make sure you get this brush and stuff out of the way. That was as they were walking through the charred remains of a fire where people were burned alive. Gavin Newsom, if he had a soul, all right, he has a soul, but it's really deep down and it's dark. If he cared about the people, he'd be convicted in that soul. How many times do you want to walk over charred, burnt, dead bodies, Gavin Newsom? Hearing the incredible sojourns and the stories of fathers who would not leave their ailing child, and so they perished together. That should quicken your soul. That should chastise your leadership as water flows back into the ocean. You argue that salt water would be a problem, and so you didn't want to use the salt water. This was an exigent, life-saving emergency. I don't think people would mind that their home eroded over what would be a period of 5 to 10 years. They don't tell you that when they claim that salt water would be a problem. It'd still be a 5 to 10-year problem, and it could have been fixed. There are remedies to that. If your home or your property is deluged by salt water, it can be repaired. But you can't repair charred remains. As fresh water is poured back into the ocean, your argument is, I don't want to use salt water, but you let millions and millions and millions of gallons of fresh water just keep going away. I believe with all my heart that you should be put up on charges of criminal negligent homicide. I believe it with everything in me. I hope that somewhere someone looks at their power and authority and asks the question, am I able to bring charges against Gavin Newsom and Mayor Bass, Karen Bass, and others, not just those two, that are high profiles? America, you have to feel something. People were burned alive. Again, we recoiled in horror as a woman was burned alive on the New York subway trains, but we saw that with our own two eyes, and so it had a little bit more impact. We didn't really see these people. We see the 40,000-foot pictures of a blaze burning through the coastline, and we forget there are human beings in there. And they were looking for a helicopter. They were looking for an ambulance. They were looking for someone to come and help them. But mechanics had their budget cut. And because the mechanics had their budget cut, equipment could not be used. This is from the mouth of the fire chief herself. There's a story, and I won't cite it right now, but it goes something like this. The entire kingdom was lost, all but for the want of a horseshoe nail. Everything depended on a horseshoe nail And because that horseshoe nail was not in place, the whole kingdom was lost. That's what we're dealing with now, ladies and gentlemen. These people are unfit for leadership because their ideology is all they care about. When you're dealing with somebody who can get sound, sage advice and they disregard it in favor of their vision of a better way, and their way doesn't work, it's time for them to go. I urge whoever has the authority in the federal government, city government, state government, look through your powers and see if you cannot bring charges against Gavin Newsom, Karen Bass, and others, because they did not do their job. My only analogy to you is this. If an employer knew his sprinkler system was not working, if an employer allowed gas cans to lay around, if he knew his fire alarm system wasn't working and a fire broke out, I don't care if it's 100-mile-an-hour winds, 200-mile-an-hour winds, a fire breaks out with his employees inside and they all perish. You trying to tell me that employer would not be brought up on criminal charges? Just because you are a servant leader doesn't absolve you from that. The only thing that would absolve you from liability, responsibility, or even punishment is if you were some kind of warlord and California was a fiefdom. This is not a fiefdom. You don't own California. None of you Democrats. It's time for some type of martial law to be called on to California, because in America, think about this. We won't even allow two grocery stores to merge without looking at the impact to the community. We would like to make sure that there's fair competition, whether it be grocery stores, whether it be, industry, whatever. But you're totally fine with a asymmetric government, a one-party rule in a state in the United States of America that doesn't even pass the smell test. Shame on you, Arnold Schwarzenegger, for putting this machinery into place. Look at the end result. We have decisions to make, ladies and gentlemen. It's 14 days into 2025. We've been called to order. There is no revenge here. There is no comeuppance here. It's time to put an end to this ridiculous oligarch social woke movement that has all but killed America. I'll leave you with this one last optic. In North Carolina, those people were beset by a hurricane. That was a natural disaster, yes. And they got $750 from their government. There's a woman here in the state of California who's in charge of the Department of Water and Power. And her compensation is $750,000 per year. Starving families who don't have shelter because a hurricane came in and took everything, $750. But because of California and its over the top, out of control, inane ideology, here's a woman that's making $750,000 a year. The United States president doesn't even make that much. We've let them run amok, ladies and gentlemen, no different than letting children play in the living room without breaking out your chonkala. It's time to break out the chonkala. Hurricanes, we have Doppler for that. We have warning, and we ask for evacuations, and people evacuate. Natural disaster. Tornadoes, we know that they're coming. We have advanced warning. I was born and raised on the south side of Chicago, and I heard the sirens ring a few times, but you have storm shelters. Every natural disaster that we have some type of countermeasure for it, or protective measure, or evasive measure. California has to deal with earthquakes and subsequent fires, or with the Santa Anas and the heavy winds, fires. We understand this. So why do you leave kindling around? Why do you leave things around that would ensure maximum carnage? And talk about reducing budgets of any fire department. The last thing you want to touch in the state of California after the last 6 years of watching human beings be burnt alive is messing with a fire department's budget. There's no defunding there. There's no giving equipment to the Ukraine. What father will give his child a stone who was asking for bread? That's the mindset that leadership must have. That does not exist here in the state of California. We're asking for emergency help and relief from President Donald J. Trump. As soon as you swear in, you need, well, I can't tell you what to say. We would ask that you look heavily at whatever measures you can take to bring the state of California back into the fold of the United States of America. These people did a special convening of their party to determine or come up with plans on how to block President Donald J. Trump from impacting California. Right there, they're cold busted. You're supposed to be helping us build a wall to stop others from getting in, but you're trying to wall California off from the rest of America. That's the end of you. It's a wrap. We need intervention from the federal government at this point. We can't do elections here. The fix is in. That's why they're acting such a fool. So in closing, God bless everybody. God bless the firemen, and give the American firemen some more respect than what Gavin Newsom has shown them by literally applauding the Mexican firemen who have come here, and thank you for your help. But you know, if we had treated our own firemen with the proper respect and funding that they deserved and allowed the Oregonian firemen or Oregonian, and let them come in instead of all this environmental crap, we could have handled this. We really didn't need to have our firemen be embarrassed and humiliated by giving all but a ticker tape parade to the Mexican firemen as they come into our country. I know what this child, and he is a child, if you stop and really look at him and how he reasons. He takes the silver spoon out of his mouth just long enough to make a damn fool out of himself. This child, his optic is, well, I'm going to show how much we need the Mexican people. I'm going to side with Mexico. You look at the picture of him greeting the Mexican firemen into our country, the American flag stands offside by itself with separation. And there sits this little boy, Gavin Newsom, holding the California flag and the Mexican flag in each of his hands as if though he's pulling them together. They're playing these passion plays on us, these simple psycho optics. We must reject all of that. We must accept that this man is culpable for what has happened in this state, including the mayor and others. We have to look at the possibility of criminal negligent homicide and arrest these people. They cannot be a part of the investigation into these fires, because if we did a true investigation, which they're probably predicated to not doing, just sweeping it under the rug till the next one happens. If we do a true investigation, wouldn't you have to agree and admit that Gavin Newsom and Karen Bass and others are literally subject to criminal prosecution? If they're even subject to it, they cannot be a part of the investigation. It's improper. These investigations need to be done by independents that don't have a dog in this fight. California, it's time to make a change now. How many more people must die? How much more must we lose in favor of a failed ideology? We already voted against it in November. We already said it's time for a change. If you're the loser, you don't then get to walk in the ring and grab the belt and say, but you lost. Sit your butts down. It's time to do a different thing. This is your boy, Ken White, host of the Southside Unicorn Show. Prayers going up for everybody. May God bless us all.
Wow, the time goes by really fast. Hey, listen to me. There's no place I'd rather be. There's nothing more I'd rather do than being right here doing this show for you. I'm Ken White, host of the Southside Unicorn Show, and we are out.